welcome to the Numbers Game. It's episode 140. I'm Jason. I'm here with Nick and Marty, and I'm feeling great and energized for another great episode. How we going, fellas?
Going well, mate. I don't know if I could match that level of energy right there, Jace. Very, very enthusiastic and invigorated. So good to have you back after your barley belly from the previous episode and dominating as usual. I'm good, going well. Watching a bit of the World Cup cricket, seeing the Aussies dominate. Geez, there's some big scores going on over there. It used to be back in the 80s that you'd be happy to get 220 runs, 230 runs off 50 overs, pretty much ensure that you're going to win the game. Now you've got to be hitting 350, 400. T20 has just taken 50 over cricket to another level. Good to watch, amazing cricket. Go Aussies, hope we win. Nick, how are you, my friend?
I'm going well too, mate. I actually, every time I turn KO on, there is something that comes up on the World Cup, but I just haven't been able to get to it. I don't know what it is, but I think I'm falling out of love with cricket. There's just so many things to watch now, and we're going to talk about this today, but sport is so much more accessible than it used to be for us. You know, you've got the NBA on at the moment, you've got the NFL, you've got obviously Formula the NBL's kicked off, Formula One. Everyone loves Formula One because there's two Aussies. Everyone's golf mad now. It's not just me. All the young kids are getting into golf. I kind of feel like cricket's not on the outer, but for me, it's every time I see it, I'm like, geez, I should watch that, but then I don't. Rugby union's been on. NRL, there's some international stuff happening. So just sport everywhere, and obviously, you know, we've got horse racing as well, which, you know, Melbourne's just had the Spring Carnival. So, yeah, plenty going on. But I don't know how I'm going to find time to watch cricket. Maybe I'll just get the highlights from you or the updates. Didn't Australia score 400 or something the other day on a smaller ground?
Yeah, I'm not glad I brought cricket up. It shows you how far we've come, like watching cricket and football 20 years ago to now. You just listed probably about 20 other sports that people are taking precedent.
I guess where I was going with that is cricket used to be all we could watch. You know,
That's
Channel
right.
9 had the cricket and some other stuff.
Richie Benaud.
But now we're just so exposed. And I think the other thing is we've got young talent that's going into these other areas, whether it's, you know, NBA. There's quite a lot of young Aussies in the NBA now that you have an interest in it, you know, that you might not have had before.
Do you have a favourite? Do you have a favourite, Nick?
A favourite sport?
Yeah.
Probably basketball. If it's what I enjoy watching the most, it'd be the NBA. I actually love watching NFL. I just can't find the time because it's such a long game, and you need to watch it from start to finish, I think, to really get into it. You can't watch the KO minis. But KO do a mini on the NBA, which takes about 28 minutes to watch pretty much nearly every point in a game without all the stuff in between that. And that's a great way if you want to watch just solid basketball without all the rubbish in between. Get on the KO minis. So I do enjoy watching those a lot.
Excited to get into today, and it's going to be a very sports-heavy episode, just to kind of bit of a behind the scenes of what's happening. But before we crack into it, just want to make mention to obviously the new major sponsor of the Numbers Game. You've heard all about Future Advisory and Innovate for many, 138 episodes. So it's time after all those to start talking about other things. So big thank you again to Dashboard Insights, which is a technology or app platform that helps you transform your data into real-time interactive dashboards, giving you a visual representation of your business's performance. Different industries, so whether you're in accounting, professional services, sales and marketing, transport, logistics, manufacturing, dashboards can be made for all different industries, so don't feel like this isn't something you can check out and have a look how it works. Free demos as well, so chat to the team, dashboardinsights.com, and go and see the true power of how one of those dashboards can help your business today. And get behind them as well with a bit of support. So go and like and follow their pages too, just like you have with the Numbers Game. Nick, what is happening today with the episode? What have you got for us?
Well, continuing on the theme of sport, I thought we'd talk about the business side of sport and go a bit deeper on that. And it's when I started looking at some of the numbers from the business side, I was really really baffled, to be honest. Like I assumed there was big money in some sports and sports teams, but I actually had no idea how big it was. So I thought it'd be good to unpack that today. Talk about some teams we know, some teams we might not follow, and just give people an understanding of, how do these teams, whether it's NFL, NBA, soccer, how do they afford to pay their players what they do? So that's the thing that I always think. You see the only real thing we hear about sports, particularly international sports and money, is how much the players are getting paid. So yeah, I'm hopefully going to give some people some background as to why that can actually happen. So we'll unpack that, and keen to get your opinion on it, Marty. See how that compares to the Aussie cricket team and what they're making and what those guys are making.
Yeah, they're struggling out at Hoddles Creek Cricket Club too. We're looking for new sponsors because the players are getting $50 every time they make 100. So I'm assuming your numbers are going to be slightly bigger than that, Nick.
Slightly bigger, but you never know. You never know. With a little bit more exposure out at Hoddles Creek, who knows where it could go. But this all started with, I read an article on Russell Crowe and the South Sydney Rabbitohs. So for those that don't know, the South Sydney Rabbitohs are an NRL rugby league team in the west of Sydney. Russell Crowe bought the Rabbitohs 17 years ago for $4.5 million. So not sure if any of you boys remember that, but it was a big thing when he came in. He was like the saviour. For anyone that understands the NRL, it's quite a battle out in the west. There are a lot of teams in the west of Sydney, and they do struggle. They struggle for funding and they struggle for money. So when Russell comes in, he's come in as a saviour, almost similar to the Dallas Mavs and what happened with what's his name, Jace?
Mark Cuban.
Mark Cuban. Yeah. So anyway, so Russell comes in and buys the South Sydney Rabbitohs for $4.5 million 17 years ago. Some other noticeable shareholders, James Packer and Mike Cannon-Brooks from Atlassian. So some big names in there. So you'd think these guys come in and they do something good. So they've now 10x their money, and the Rabbitohs are now worth $46 million in 17 years. So it made me think, well, why? So there's still a similar amount of teams in the NRL. How does a rugby league team go from $4.5 million to $46 million in 10 years' time, 17 years' time? Any idea why? Who wants to have a guess at why there'd be such an uplift?
Oh, I don't want to guess, but I just want to tell you from an accounting brain point of view, valuations get me really excited. So I am interested to know how the numbers all come together because, when you think about if Russell Crowe had put $4.5 million into property, that probably would have at best doubled every 10 years. So he might have had $10 million. And instead, as an investment, if the everyday punter would be able to buy into sporting organisations, wow. So no, just interested in figuring out. I mean, I'm sure between merchandise and ticket sales and whatnot, there's different things, but I'm sure you're going to unpack it in a much better way than what my accounting brain is doing at the moment.
And just on that, you can, a lot of these international teams, a lot of them are listed, so you can get involved. So, Marty, any idea? You have a guess? How do you get 10x?
I just think that ticket sales and the general public coming in and merch wouldn't have that scalability at 10x. So I'm thinking accessibility, technology, digital streaming, reach. I think it would all probably play some part in it off the top of my head.
Yeah. Well, you're pretty much spot on. So if we look at the 5 most common ways that sporting clubs generate revenue, and you relate to this with Hoddle Creek, most of this will make sense to you, Marty, I would have thought. Ticket sales, number 1. Merchandise, number 2. Broadcasting rights, number 3. Sponsorships, number 4. And marketing, number 5. And I'm sure there's some things outside of that, but that's where most of their money is made. And as you pointed out, Marty, ticket sales and merchandise, well, you can only do so much. Very much linked to, ticket sales, how much capacity can your stadium hold? And merchandise, how many people are out there? But what has gone crazy in recent times are broadcasting rights, which then goes into sponsorship and then goes into marketing deals. So you think about broadcasting 15 years ago. And if you wanted to watch something in this country, you would watch, as we just suggested, you'd watch the cricket on Channel 9. Or if you're fortunate enough, you might have had a pay TV subscription and been able to watch Foxtel back then. Whereas now you've got access to KO, YouTube. Think of all the other streaming apps out there, Netflix, Stan. Now, obviously, they don't play basketball or they don't play NFL, but there's a lot of documentaries on them. So we just have so much more access and so much more ability to pay. You can get an NBA subscription. I think it's about $375 or $400 a year, and you can pretty much watch any NBA game, any highlight you want. And I assume that would be the same for the NFL and also for soccer and whatnot as well. So to put this into perspective, we'll talk about the NFL first. So the NFL collectively over the next 10 years, with all of their broadcasting agreements, are going to generate just over $100 billion in revenue just from broadcasting.
Wow. Does
anyone know? You might know, Jace. What was the AFL deal with Channel 7? Is it Channel 7? Who's got the AFL now?
I reckon $1 billion would be
$1 billion?
$1 or $2 billion max, I reckon.
Yeah. So $100 billion plus just for the NFL. And this is the crazy thing. It's a 100% increase on their last deal or the last deals that they had done.
7-year broadcast deal, $4.5 billion, just to put it in perspective. Sorry to
there
cut
you go.
in. 7 years,
yeah.
$4.5 billion compared to 10-year, $100 billion.
Yep.
Wow.
So collectively, globally, as the world, I guess, I was going to say as a country, but as a human race, $50 billion is spent annually on sports media rights. So just think about that, right? So the NBA, we talk about that, then goes into more eyes on players, more eyes on games. That then obviously increases marketing opportunities and sponsorship. So this is not a big number, but this really got me. But the NBA has an 8-year deal with Nike simply to supply the NBA players with their uniform, which is worth $1 billion. So, I guess that's indirectly marketing, but this is just to give the players their playing uniforms. The Nike is paid.
Is that Nike paying the NBA
$1 billion
and they're going to supply the uniforms?
Correct. Yeah.
Oof.
8-year deal, but eyes on the uniforms, and so many more eyes on the like you think about I don't know, just think about how many kids in remote countries would never have been able to watch the NBA that can watch the NBA now. Like it's just crazy, and it really makes you understand how it's blown up and why they're worth so much. So obviously the South Sydney Rabbitohs on a much lower level, but are experiencing a similar thing. So then it got me thinking, well, how much money are these groups actually making? So I picked out a couple of franchises that most of us will know. First one being the Golden State Warriors. Anyone who follows NBA will know about the Warriors. They've been on a pretty good run the last 10 years or so. Manchester United, Miami. Everyone knows about the Miami Soccer Club or Football Club now because most people have watched the Posh and Becks doco. So most people are at least interested in what Beckham is doing with Miami, and also the Dallas Cowboys, which is the creme de la creme, basically, of the NFL. So Dallas Cowboys, current valuation is $9 billion US, so $9 billion US dollars. Turnover, so total revenues for the Dallas Cowboys, $1.14 billion. And Marty, this is a number that you'll really like. Profit before tax, $500 million. So running at above a 50% net profit margin, give or take. So not bad for the Dallas Cowboys. Golden State Warriors, $7.7 billion valuation, $765 million in annual revenues, give or take, with just under $80 million in profit. Manchester United, so here's one that'll... I'm actually keen to get your opinions on this. Manchester United, $3 billion valuation, $648 million in revenue, $42 million loss for the Manchester United Soccer Club. And that is very common for Premier League clubs to run at a loss. So any idea why that might be, Marty? Why would soccer clubs be running at a loss?
There's something wrong with the ratios there. So they're paying someone too much. That would be my thought process around it.
Yeah, I'd say it's so competitive. The price they've got to pay players to come and jump across, they're probably overpaying wages and player salaries, and I guess relying on their brand value to keep the business afloat.
Yeah, spot on. So this is a stat I found mind-boggling. 70% of Premier League, on average, Premier League franchises spend 70% of their income on wages.
Yeah, there you go.
So that includes, obviously players would make up a bulk of that. You've obviously got management and also people running the franchise, but how do you make money with only 30% left? Now compare that. I couldn't get the total wages at the Golden State Warriors, but I do have player expenses. So the Golden State Warriors, in contrast, spend 14% of their revenue on players. Huge difference. What I also managed to find out was that when clubs are elevated in the Premier League, so they win their league or they win their cup, or I'm not sure what the exact words are, and they go to the next level, they generally spend over 100% of their revenue the next year on player payments. So you think about you're in a lower league, so you've been experiencing that lower revenue and whatnot. Then you go up to let's say you go up to the Premier League, which is the next one above. All of a sudden, you've still got the revenue of the lower club, but you've got to bring in these superstars to compete and try to go to that next level. So they mentioned 3 clubs. One club spent 175% of their annual revenue on player salaries. So basically, you've got private ownership that keep putting money in to keep these things afloat. So pretty crazy stuff. And then I got thinking, well, why? Why is it so different in the Premier League, and why is that so different to the NBA and the NFL? And my only suggestion could be that NBA and NFL, they very much own areas. So you look at the Golden State Warriors own that San Francisco area. Look at Dallas. There are 2 NFL teams in Dallas, but or in Texas, sorry, but Dallas, they own most of it. You look at the NBA, you've got that whole Los Angeles area. You've got 2 teams, and the Clippers are reasonably young compared to the Lakers. Boston have got the Celtics.
Yeah, but you got 40 million people living in California and two teams to choose from, right?
Correct. So whereas you compare that, and I'm not very good with soccer, so I'm probably going to butcher this, but there seems to be teams everywhere. You even got to look at the soccer stadiums; they're quite small. Plus, you've got how big soccer is internationally. You've got all these other leagues internationally, whether they're in Spain or whatnot. Whereas you look at basketball, it's really the NBA. Yes, there's some European leagues and whatnot, but no one watches them. It's all about the NBA. So I think it's about really owning that area too, which makes these franchises go so well.
So Nick, when you look at the comparison of revenues to, say, a Manchester United to, let's say, the Mavs or Golden State, was it a similar revenue target and it's just the wages, or are they significantly higher on revenue? They are, aren't they?
No, similar.
Similar.
Dallas Cowboys are an outlier. But Golden State Warriors, $760 million US revenue. Manchester United, this would be pounds, 648 million.
Okay. So it really is the wages. So they're getting the same revenue reach. It's just what they're paying the players is significantly more in order to hold them. I mean, that's a common problem with Premier League. This is going back. I remember, I think it was 2004. Theo Pathetis was an owner, and he said you always burn money on those soccer clubs when you invest in, but it's the passion, and they keep rolling over the passion. But it's got to do something. Goodness me.
Maybe it's English people are different than those in the US. Just the way they spend money and what they like to do. I don't know, but it's really interesting.
That'll be another interesting case study to then kind of look at down the track. It'd be the UK or European soccer or football valuations versus what's happening in the US over the next 5 to 10 years, where, you know, talked about into Miami where Lionel Messi went. You had David Beckham was able to buy the license for Miami for $25 million, you know, years ago when he retired and finished up at LA Galaxy. That was part of his deal. And now with Messi coming to Miami, similar deal has been structured. You know, Messi is getting paid something like $55 million a year. Turned down an offer of $440 million a year from one of the Saudi teams that wanted him to go there. But when you look at the reason why, I mean, Messi's been offered a stake in Miami, and then he also has the chance at his own license to create a club at some point down the track in the MLS, the soccer league in America. But for David Beckham and Miami, they've gone from a $25 million valuation to a $600 million valuation over the last X amount of years. So Messi's kind of playing the long game, going, well, yeah, cool, I could get $400 million a year, go and play in Saudi and, you know, maybe not have as good a time. Or I'm going to go to Miami, be a bloody rock star, create something special, get paid my $55 million a year, but then have the chance at doing what Beckham's done and creating some significant wealth through the ownership of one of these sporting organisations.
Yeah, and just on that too, Jay. So we spoke about this earlier, but Miami have a new stadium coming, which they expect is going to boost the valuation to $1 billion plus.
Oof.
So you know, it's just crazy. And then I started to think about, again, I don't watch soccer, but soccer seems it's got that like they're raw, they're real soccer diehards. You know, you hear the stories about you know, separating the crowds because, you know, everyone goes there, they drink, and it used to be quite dangerous. There's some cool movies on it. Whereas if you look at American sport, it's so family entertainment based. Like even the baseball, like I've been to the NFL, I've been to NBA, and I've been to the baseball, and it's an event. It's very family orientated. It's all about getting kids involved. Now, I haven't been to the soccer. I've watched soccer games, and I don't feel like they do any of that. So maybe it's, you know, they're attracting more people in. There's that. I think you sent me a podcast with Mark Cuban, Marty, and one of the things he said about the Dallas Mavericks is we're not in the basketball game, we're in the entertainment game. And it talked about bringing in families, bringing in kids, which, you know, increases merchandise spend. And yeah, so it was crazy stuff. The other thing I just wanted to mention too is the types of businesses that now want to advertise or be involved with sport that didn't exist. Crypto is one. So the Miami Heat has signed a 19-year deal for their arena worth $135 million with FTX, which is a crypto exchange. So these are businesses that didn't exist, right, 10 years ago. And the big thing that's happening at the moment is, particularly in the States, is online betting. Now, it's huge in our country. I think we might have spoken about the AFL in the past, but the AFL actually do get kickbacks for pretty much most bets, or every bet or something like that that's made on the AFL. So at the moment in the US, online gambling or sports gambling in general is very new. There's a lot of states that haven't legalized it. But you wait that it will continue to get legalized because there's just too much money involved. It's just a matter of time. But you watch what happens when that goes through the states, and when people start getting access to online betting. You look at what's happening in this country. You've got the likes of Shaquille O'Neal, Mark Wahlberg on ads, Snoop Dogg on betting ads. So, you know, these companies are turning over massive amounts of money just to target our market share. Imagine when they've got the market share of the states and how much these sporting clubs or franchises are going to benefit from that. So the thing I read was only 27% of the US population currently has access to legal mobile sports betting in their state. Macquarie believes that will move to 96% by 2025, which is only 2 years away. So wow. I guess from an investment point of view, if any of these sporting businesses are listed, probably not a bad investment to get involved with based on some of these stats I've read out, and you just think about the money that's in that's in gambling when it does happen, and it definitely will. So good times ahead for sports. I think betting's just going to take it to a new level.
Yeah, and you think, Nick, and Jason, a challenging world with a lot of dramas at the moment in various different areas and ways. Sports is exciting. Sports is really aspirational, and I'm not surprised it's getting this traction. It's always had that personally, but now to see it expand on such a commercial and global level, you can understand it. I love the idea of it was at Miami team with Beckham owned, getting that upside. I thought that was an interesting statement that they are actually making money, because that value wouldn't be going up unless they were increasing revenues and profitability and asset position. So what do they know compared to the Premier League in the UK? I think it's just the allocation of resources, and obviously there must be something going on in data collection and the value of that at some level. It's they've obviously cracked the code that they've duplicated from NFL and NBA and put that across now into football, soccer.
Yeah. Apple and Adidas did a $2.5 billion deal with MLS and Inter Miami as part of the Messi agreement. So just think about like the size and scale of the sponsorship deals. Incredible. And look, I've seen that many Messi jerseys floating around in that pink that, I think they sold something like hundreds of thousands of those Adidas Messi jerseys were sold, and they were sold out everywhere for so long. So even when you think about, while merchandise doesn't make up the lion's share of that, but, if you get the right player in the right jersey and, can go pretty bonkers. And one of the other lessons I was going to say on top of that, part of Golden State Warriors' net worth being up there as well, is they also own their own real estate, or they own their own stadium. So as a business owner going, if you're renting but you got the opportunity to buy your business premises, this is the kind of things and the mindsets that these sporting organisations that have been able to do to build their value. Likewise to, lessons we can learn. And I think being able to study, Dallas Cowboys, Mark Cuban as an entrepreneur or as a businessman bought that, X years ago. I can't remember when he bought it, but he bought it for $300 million. It's now worth $9 billion, and even the way he talks about it not being a basketball organization, it's an entertainment business. Again, there's lessons that can be learned here to think about how in our day-to-day lives and businesses are we thinking the right way and looking at things. Are we looking at things the way they've always been done, or are we thinking outside the box, like how some of these organizations have grown to where they are today? Yeah,
that's what they say. McDonald's is a real estate business.
Correct.
Really. And that's how you need to be thinking as a business owner. Like, can you secure your own commercial premises rather than paying someone else $150,000 for that privilege? So they're the types of mindset shifts and angles you want to be thinking about, because they work on a micro level as they do on a macro level. So it's a really good topic of discussion.
It's no longer about bums on seats, is it? It's all about, just getting more eyes on these games and these players, and the reality is there's so many more eyes on players now, with the access to different streaming options that we have in different streaming apps, and it just goes on and on. You talk about boxing and the UFC, and you look at how much money that they're making now. It's because there's more people can buy the stream. You can pay $50-$60 to buy the stream instead of going to the pub to watch boxing or the UFC. Golf's another example. Golf's getting revamped with Live, and Live's getting far more eyes on golf. They're attracting in the younger people. Marty, to cricket, T20, that didn't exist, and now you've got cricketers earning big money that they couldn't have dreamed of earning, because things are revamping, getting more eyes on it, more options to watch it, making it more fun. So, yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting to see it all play out, but who knows where it'll go. What's next, I guess? I guess the streaming at the moment is pretty, I don't know if you'd say saturated, but once you can get one streaming app, you can get the other. But obviously, we've got the betting coming through, but I just think of how else can they evolve to continue to get the growth. But maybe for another episode.
Beautiful, Nick. Well, thank you for sharing. We've just really unpacked a sports-heavy episode, but that's part part of why the numbers game was called what it was called. We love our sports, and we love any opportunity we get to talk about it. So if you've enjoyed this episode, feel free to jump on and give it a bit of a rating. We need some more 5-star reviews, and we love hearing from our fans and listeners. Thank you again for tuning in. It's been another ripping episode. Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Marty. And until next time,
gamble responsibly. You win some, you lose everything. Game over.